The Galactic Historical Archive presents Ghost Channel Zero. It's been 20 long years since planet Penumbra was drained to depletion and dubbed the Ghost Planet. Before Starship Vintex, before Tier Creeds, before the Ghost Channel 9, there was invasion. The Phantasma continent was founded on war. But the invasion was unlike anything we Tasmans had ever experienced as a nation. When I took up my position as Professor of History at Miskatonic U, it was to ensure our troubled past would never be forgotten. But it still gives me pause to submit a donation from among my personal belongings. Today I commit my journal, kept through the latter days of the invasion, and my collection of writings from the rebellion years to the Republic Historical Archive. This in the hopes that my experiences and the ones of those that lived and died beside me might be remembered. What follows is my account of the Terbisi invasion of planet Penumbra. I was there the night of the first bombardment, when fire first rained from our skies. The year was 2046, the same year the hallowed halls of Vossian were converted into the halls of virtuous law. Sector 6 was experiencing a period of prosperity and expansion. Neo-Vossia, we called it then. A new pavilion had been constructed that year, along with an amphitheater, several art museums, and swanky new restaurants on the strip. Live music, good drink, and dancing made up the evening before it all began. I had a place off of Arkley Avenue in New Vossia then. A woman I met at the bar, Nadia, accompanied me home that evening. Later, after some riveting conversation, I at last turned out the lights. And then, it happened. Wine bottles rolling off my counter and crashing onto the kitchen floor was the first sign of things to come. Nadia and I were both startled awake by the sound. Not wanting to risk stepping on glass in the morning, I got up and headed to the kitchen. Along the way, I threw open the curtains to add a bit of light to the room. As I peered out across the Neo-Vossia skyline, I smiled. Then, something moving in the clouds caught my eye. As they parted, I beheld them for the first time. I knew at once what the looming, talon-shaped creatures descending from the heavens meant. Invasion. The screaming began as others in the building saw what I saw. Nadia came up alongside me and peered over my shoulder out the window. And then she screamed too. We grabbed what came to mind then. Our clothes, keys, what Merlot I had within immediate reach, and began a panicked charge down the emergency stairwell. No elevators, I'd insisted. I couldn't believe what I'd seen, but my Sector Defense Force training had me anticipating an EMP being deployed. As if on cue, the lights in the building went out. And as we were plunged into darkness on the stairs, elevators plummeted past us to their doom in a sickening crash of twisted metal. A couple floors down, we fell in with a group of other Tasmans. A Subalan elf couple, an older Auric woman and her 2 sons, and a group of Nakubian teens were ahead of us. Thank Jupiter, the Nakubians were blessed with night vision, or we'd have all broken our necks racing in the dark. We reached the lobby and burst out the double doors, our makeshift party pouring out onto Arkley Avenue. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and monstrous eldritch moans boomed high above us. Vehicle transport alarms went off for miles in all directions. The sky itself turned a hateful orange and was alive with writhing abominations I'd later learn were called planet reapers. The sea of screams that rang out through the streets that night still haunt me to this very moment. And as I watched the emerald-hued lasers harnessed by the Talon ships rip through downtown, 𝔬𝔤𝔬𝔰𝔱 went up in flames around us. Our Air Force, the Ghost Guard, flew past overhead toward the encroaching ships. We ran, so far and so fast that I thought I might die on my feet. I never looked back. One by one, the others I raced beside lagged. Even poor Nadia was lost in the end. She wailed out my name as she collapsed from exhaustion. But I kept moving. Damn my cowardice. Something pursued us through the smoke, collecting our fallen. Some shambling alien horror. I didn't know its purpose, but it wouldn't have me. I didn't want to die. In the end, I alone reached the edge of town. I had survived the raising of 𝔬𝔤𝔬𝔰𝔱, and as I turned to survey the full scale of the invasion, my hands began to tremble for the first time. Sector 6 was a blazing pit of embers. Towering skyscrapers I'd admired every day, now broken, jagged structures smoldering and smoking into the sky. My home, gone in an instant. The urge to surrender to despair was overwhelming, but I refused. I grit my teeth, clenched my fists, and made off into the wilds of Sector 5. After that night, the fall of Penumbra truly began. After a harrowing week stumbling through the brush, I encountered another survivor. He led me back to his camp in a clearing, where no less than 15 survivors had gathered. There, hidden in the deep jungle, we sheltered for 3 more weeks. Each day venturing out for supplies and food, taking care to hide from the scout ships that passed overhead. but the wilds were growing wilder. The local creatures exhibiting increased levels of aggression. At first, it was just the tarp rats venturing too close for how skittish the species was known to be. Then, it was a group of 𝔤𝔤𝔬𝔰𝔱 scuffling with themselves on the borders of our settlement. 𝔬𝔬𝔬𝔱 approached us in broad daylight. 𝔱𝔥 devoured their hatchlings. Colorful birds were dropping dead from the trees. All omens were ill. The camp anticipated attack. Despite our readiness, when a massive 𝔓𝔢 burst forth through the brush late one evening, we all froze. The beast appeared crazed with bloodlust, surging with adrenaline, and with unnatural speed and strength it tore the jaw off of our border guard, aching, with a single swipe of its paw. Then it set itself upon his partner, 𝔊𝔤𝔬𝔰𝔱. As it disemboweled him, we leapt into action, but the creature shrugged off all attempts to harm it, and, blind to pain, it savaged many more of our number. When our tents were covered in crimson and the camp stank of blood, the handful of us left turned and quit the place, racing into the jungle as the 𝔓𝔢 roared and gave chase to its prey. Not content with the veritable feast of flesh that it had claimed, it craved yet the life of all that moved within its sight. Then, as if waiting for this chance, a pack of snarling 𝔤𝔤𝔬𝔰𝔱 leapt out from the trees, nipping at our heels, the 𝔓𝔢 not far behind them. An elder girl, Marini, stumbled over a tree root, and the 𝔤𝔤𝔬𝔰𝔱 were upon her before she even hit the ground, tearing and tugging at her limbs as she screamed, until she didn't. 3 of us remained. I vaulted over puddles of steaming green ichor. Could these foul pools have caused this change in the animals? There was no time to think on it. As we sprinted out from the tree line into a clearing, a sudden light shined so brightly that we 3 had to shield our eyes. Before I could resign myself to death, the sound of automatic blaster fire rang out in the night air, followed by the yelping cries of our pursuers being cut down en masse. Even the 𝔓𝔢 fell dead at our feet. Suddenly safe, we turned, staring into the unyielding light, the sound of footsteps fast approaching. Dear Journal, I woke up late today. Slept like the dead though, and it's not like time matters now. I was roused by a shouting match between Trista Seif and Vistar Tregallion, the 2 survivors from my time in the jungles. We now share a room in the Sector 5 Special Housing Center. Trista insists we sneak out. She argues that we were safer in the wild, that we should get off the grid until the Sector Defense Force can repel the invasion. Vistar, in turn, argues for the safety of our current walls. And, while I typically side with Trista in most matters, I agree with him here. We lost our entire camp to that last 𝔓𝔢 attack for Jupiter's sake. The spectral police are traitorous bastards. That is true, but their facility has running water, heat. We're safer here. Trista shoots me a dirty look, before ultimately dropping it and storming off. Tensions are running high since our surrender last week. Dear Journal, finished a walk around the special housing center this morning, which is really just a bombed out apartment complex requisitioned by spectral police. Near as I can tell, we're now situated somewhere in the south of Sector 5. The sky here is the same burning orange from the bombardment of Sector 6. Children gather in the courtyard. They point and stare at the enormous planet reapers suspended in the sky. They say it's the end of the world. No adults are confident enough to correct them. Dear Journal, I had the dream again. Woke up gasping for air in a cold sweat. It was only a matter of time. The night Sector 6 fell won't leave me. I still wake up kicking my legs to keep running, but in the dream, I always fall and am dragged away like the rest. Like Nadia, I can still hear her screams as that collector found her. What the Krill did that thing do to her? This is all so insane. At least, I have this journal. But I refuse to use the cascading orange glow from outside to write with. This much is still mine, and it remains a simple thing. Pen, ink, and paper. We've been here a few weeks, but I've come to hate the glow left over from the bombardments. It reminds me of the pools of green slime in the jungles, of the Ursa, of poor Marini, of what these aliens are doing to our world. I walked out into the hall to wash my face after the nightmare, and spotted Trista Seif sitting on the windowsill, watching the next bombardment light up the night sky. Despite the source of the light, she looked hauntingly beautiful. I'd never quite had the courage to tell Trista how I felt about her. Regarding me without turning to look, she told me she'd always wanted to volunteer at the downtown social center, to help kids in the inner sector by being a mentor. But she had put it off, thinking she'd still have time. She was quiet for a long while then, before turning to me with tears in her eyes. Her expression wounded me. Out the window, the inner sector raged with fire and smoke. troops loosed another volley, leveling the last remnant of downtown San Francisco. 𝔬𝔤𝔬𝔰𝔱 was gone.